Alright, welcome back. This is going to be the last video we do here working with Pong. And what we're going to do is actually something pretty high level, pretty intense. We're going to take the Pong ball and turn it into an object. And you're in danger here of losing the vocab. An object is a model of some idea. So the object we're going to work with here is a ball that bounces off the sides of the screen. And the reason we're going to turn it into, in programming, what is called an object is that we want to be able to have as many of those as we want. So the code we have right now is not very good code. You can see here that the draw function gets run a whole bunch of times. And it's cute that it just happens over and over and over again. But really, we have to, if we wanted another ball, we'd have to duplicate all of this code, change the variables a whole bunch of times. It would be really annoying, and you'd end up with your code being 400 lines long, unreadable. You'd have to try and remember, am I working with ball 1 or ball 2 or ball 5, and so that's really frustrating. It would be much easier if we had one code that described a ball, and we could just grab that code whenever we wanted to create a ball. And that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to teach you, this is how to make an object. So first thing we're going to do is create an object. And in processing, objects are called classes. So you're a class of thing. Think of like being a mage in a video game. Your class is magic user, or your class is junior. You are one of many juniors or sophomores. So we're going to come down here, and it's going to be a separate amount of code. Notice here that I'm completely out of the curly brackets for the draw function. So this is the end of draw. And down here I'm going to create an object. I'm going to call it object class ball. And you'll notice here when I create an object, I don't put parentheses there. And that's because this class ball isn't a function, it's an idea. It's a concept that we're going to repeat. So again, the difference is draw is something that happens, something that's repeated. Setup is something that happens once, it's a function. Size is a function, it happens once. But ball is a separate idea that we're going to get to invoke a whole bunch of times. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is just start taking all of the code that pertains to the ball, and we're going to take it out of our program and put it into our object. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is take all the variables. So these are all the variables you need to describe a ball. Okay, so again, the point here is we're going to build a model. So the ball class now knows that it's going to have an x position, a y position, and a speed in both of those directions. So then we want to get to sort of how do you make a ball. Okay, well, if I'm going to take it all out of the code up here, I'm going to have some sort of code that will actually create the ball and set these variables to what they want to be. So we're going to come down here and actually create a function called the ball constructor. And notice this is it's an actual function, and this is the constructor. I'll put it right here. This is the ball constructor. Constructor is another bit of vocab that you should be cogent of. Constructor is a special function. It goes inside of a class or an object, and its job is to build that object for you the first time that you create one. Okay? And you can see here I have it actually going. I have a sort of Food Network style, right? I have one that's already finished here. And you can see here I'm making class ball, and I've taken the values off of all of these variables, and I've put them inside of the constructor. So we're going to do that over here in our actual code that we've all been working with. Why do we do this? So again, I don't want you to just repeat the code I do and be like, well, that's what Cornelli did. I'm just going to repeat that and copy it, because that means that you won't be able to do this yourself. And that's what I'm, most interested in. I don't want you to repeat my projects and get a fantastic grade just because you could copy Pong and make it blah blah blah. I want you to be able to do these things on your own, which is one of the reasons I'm not telling you what projects to do. I know that's probably frustrating for some of you, but you have to believe me, that's on purpose. So we're going to take all of this setup stuff for the ball idea, and we're going to put it inside of here. So we're going to say ball x equals 50. We're going to say ball y equals 300. So this puts the ball somewhere. We're going to say ball speed x equals 3. And we're going to say ball speed y equals 0. So now we set these variables up. So up here, we're actually going to take them away. We want to just declare the memory here up at the top. We don't want to actually set them up. So again, what I'm doing this is just allocating memory. That's all this block of code is doing. It's saying, oh, when I make a ball, that's going to have 4 variables. Okay, I don't know what they are yet, but if he wants to make a ball, that's how big it's going to be. Okay, so we have these set up here now in our ball constructor. Notice we're still inside of our ball class. So now the ball is constructed, and it's working pretty much exactly the same way as it was before. Now we need to give it the ability to actually bounce and move. So we're going to take all of this code that pertains to the ball, all these if statements. So I'm going to grab them all. See, this has to do with the ball all the way down to here. Whoops. So all of that I've selected. This is, if the ball hits the paddle, if the ball hits the edge, this is making the ball move, and this is actually drawing the ball. I'm going to cut all that out, and I'm going to put it down here. But I can't just put it in the code. If I make a ball, this code is only going to run once. What I need to happen is have an actual function that I can call later. So something I can go grab a handle of and run that later. So I'm going to actually create another function called, let's say, update. So this function, which actually is going to be called a method, everything has 2 names. So here is an object, in this case ball, an object, method, or function. Okay, and what this is just describing, if we use the model analogy, this block of code right here is describing what the ball can do. So this set up what a ball is. This is going to tell us what a ball can do. And we could have a bunch of methods. In this case, we're only going to have one. And I'm going to dump all this code in here. So I just pasted all that code. Okay, and then I got to make sure all the tabbing is right so it doesn't look silly. Okay, you might laugh at me adjusting all my tabs all the time, but you'll be sad if you don't adjust your tabs. Because eventually, your code will be so long that you'll end up just frustrated by the fact that you can't figure out where an error is. So I would really, really behoove you to tab your code correctly so you can tell what's inside of what. But I've made that case to you 1,000 times, and some of you won't buy it until you have some horrible error that you have to figure out. Okay, so now what we've done here, really we haven't done much. We've basically just taken everything out of draw. Okay, so look what happened to the draw function now. The draw, we don't even need this anymore. Shoot, we can see the end of it. Who cares? We pretty much now draw a background, and we draw a rectangle, and that's it. So this code isn't going to do anything. So I've moved everything, right? So I created the memory for things. Then I can set it up if I use the ball function. Then I can update the ball to see how it's moving. And that's about it. That's all I can do. But none of this actually will run. If I run the program, you're going to see that none of this works. Okay, so it looks like we've taken a step backwards. And if this ever pops up here, so here's what we got, right? I can move my paddle up and down. That's it. Where's the ball? Well, we moved all that code into its separate, its own area, a ball model. So we actually have to create a ball. So up here at the beginning of the game, I'm going to create a ball. So instead of it being a float or an integer, it's actually a ball. So we say class ball. Okay, and we got to give the ball a name. Let's just call it B. In fact, let's call it B1. And then now we have to actually create it. So what is B1? Well, it's of class ball. So it gets all the memory needed to make a ball, in this case 4 floats. And then we actually have to create it. And this is where this function comes in. So we want to create B1. We need to call a function that sets that up. Well, this is why we have a constructor. And you can see that they're really aptly named. So we can say new ball. And then boom, you've got a variable called B1 that behaves like a ball. And what we're going to do is stick that ball in the draw function. We're going to say B1 dot update. Okay, so what we're doing is we're taking the B1 ball, so the first ball we've created, and we're actually going to run the update method. And the dot means that we're going inside of that object. So literally, we go inside the code and we say, is there a function called update? Yes. And boom, this code ought to work. Let's see. Probably won't the first time, but nothing ever does. Okay, so it's broken. So we can see here the ball sticks in the upper side of the corner. So we haven't, our migration over to objects isn't quite perfect yet. So let's check this out. Let's see. We're calling B1 update whenever we run the draw function. So something is amiss. I wonder what. Let's see. So we created a ball. Okay, so it's going to have this position. So something went wrong here, I think. If the ball is appearing, we saw it in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, it thinks its position is 0. And that's definitely not good. So I wonder where we screwed up here. Let's see. We drew the ellipse. Do you guys see the error? I don't know. Let's run it again and see if we can see any other interesting behavior that we're not sure what's going on. So we can move the paddle. So the draw function is still working. But this guy is just not updating. I wonder where the problem is. Let's see. So if we move around the ball, see, we should have it set, and we should actually see it down at 300. So it tells me, when I'm looking at my code and trying to debug it, this tells me that there's something really wrong here with ball Y. This isn't quite working. We're not getting the ball to actually pop down, and we're actually not getting it to pop to the right either. So something is messed up with how this function is moving the ball around. So this code apparently is never running, but what's interesting is that it is drawing an ellipse. And if you look at our code, the only time that we've ever called the ellipse function is right here. So that means that this code is being run, and it's actually being run here as well. Because it's actually putting the ball on the screen. So I wonder what is going wrong with our code. I don't actually know. I'm just trying to figure this out while we screencast this together here. Let's see, are these getting set up? Maybe not. I don't know. I suppose what we could do now is print them out. So we can say print. Let's just see if ball Y is getting set the way we think. So what will happen now is if we print it, it's going to print it down here in what we call the console. The user doesn't see this, but the programmer can use it to debug it. So let's run our code. We should see something print out down here. Nope, I didn't see anything. So something is wrong with our constructor here. Interesting. So let's go over and look at our cheater sort of Food Network already built function and see what we did wrong here. So I wrote this code a while ago, and now I'm just trying to relive it here with you guys. Looks like our syntax is wrong. So you can see here on this constructor, it doesn't require a return statement. So that's a pretty typical problem there. So constructors are truly special functions. They don't need to be you don't need to tell the program what they're going to give back. This is fantastic. So let's run this code and see what we can do here. Oh, now we have a game of Pong going here. Fantastic. These are pretty classic errors that people make. So why did we do any of this? Well, here's why. Now, to make a more than one ball in the game, all we have to do is say this. Now we've got 2 balls, and all I have to do is say update. And we ought to see 2 balls going. Whoops, equal sign. So we run the game. They're going to appear on top of each other at first, but then they'll each get their own random direction. And that one, in case that one was deflected off the screen, so we lost. Let's run it again. See if we can get a game going with 2 balls. Oh gosh, now things just got real, didn't they? This is happening right now. We're playing Pong with 2 balls. So I hope you can see the value of running an object-oriented game here. So before, we would have had to have a whole bunch of code, double the code. And now what we have is one class of a ball. Whoops, excuse me. One class for a ball, and we can just repeat it as many times as we want with a very, very few updated lines of code. All right, folks. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to a different project.